Mr. Chair, I'll move to come back into open session at 11:05.
I'll second.
Motion a second coming up regular session at 11:05. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to direct our council to act as to what was discussed in our closed session and to move forward without haste.
I'll second that. You got it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Have a safe drive back.
I'll be talking.
Okay. We gotta get Bob back in here too.
He's on,
Oh, there he is, okay.
The whole time, wasn't it?
okay, are you ready, Monty? At this time, I'll turn it over to our Human Services Board Chair, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll move into our Human Services Board to call that to order. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda, Bob? I see that you're online with us.
I think he's walking in. I think I
There he
can hear
comes.
him. His voice travels for a far distance.
So I just called for any additions or changes to our amenda for Human Services.
No.
Okay. All right, hearing
Motion
none.
approved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to approve our agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to our consent agenda, items 1 through 3.
so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second for our consent agenda, items 1 through 3. All those in favor?
Aye,
Opposed? It's carried. Bob, consider the Benton County Community Health Plan from July 1st through June 30th, 2025.
Okay, I just texted Jacqueline, because Jacqueline's gonna provide that update.
Okay.
She's at a conference, so she's toggling back and forth, but she texted me a few minutes ago, and I think,
There she is.
yes.
Yep.
Jacqueline, you are up.
Morning, Jacqueline.
good,
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm doing just in time.
Yeah, perfect timing.
Well, I'm here in Atlanta today, so first and foremost, thank you so much for the support of me attending the NACHO conference. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
So I will need to share my screen. I'm wondering if Monty would like to give me the presenter mode.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Where are you at right now, anyway?
Atlanta, Georgia.
And you're at one of the conference that the board approved for you to go to.
Yes. Okay, see the share screen here. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
yes, we can.
Okay, let's see how to get this back on. Okay. Not sure how to get that little bubble off the screen here. Okay. So today I'll be presenting additional information and follow-up from our December Committee of the Whole meeting. At that last December meeting, quite a bit ago, we had talked about our community health improvement plan that we were working on. So I am back today to present that plan. So this plan that we've been working on, we do in partnership with what's called the Central Minnesota Alliance. The Central Minnesota Alliance is an initiative that is working towards creating healthier communities. And we do our community health improvement plan in conjunction with Benton County ourselves, Stearns County Public Health, Sherburne County Public Health, and then Center Care. And really, we've been working together to really look at what those health needs are of our communities, to identify priorities, and then also to develop our action plans together. So the Central Minnesota Alliance works underneath a structure system where we have a process manager group. That process manager group really helps to keep the work moving along. We have a leadership group that really helps to focus on decision-making via consensus. And then we have 3 different committees that work to complete various components of the assessment process. So just a quick look at what our legal requirements are. So there are two set of requirements for the Central Minnesota Alliance. One is the requirement for our local health system, so for CentraCare. That's underneath the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. And this is really a requirement for not-for-profit hospitals to go through a community health needs assessment every 3 years, and then they will have to adopt an implementation strategy to address issues that derive from that process. And then we have a requirement for local public health departments. And so our requirement is outlined underneath the Local Public Health Act statute for Minnesota, 145A. And that's for public health departments to complete a community health needs assessment and a community health improvement plan every 5 years. So when the Central Minnesota Alliance formed, we decided to move to a 3-year cycle to match that of our CentraCare partners. There are two different sets of requirements that we have. The first requirement is to produce the community health needs assessment, and that's an assessment that identifies what those factors are that affect the health of our community, and those factors that determine available resources to address those factors. And then the second component is our community health improvement plan, and that's what I'm here to present today. And our community health improvement plan is really that long-term effort for us to address public health problems in our community. And it's really based off of the community health needs assessment that we conducted. The community health improvement plan is really just one step in the process towards improving community health. So our group adopted a framework that's called Mobilizing for Action Through Planning and Partnerships, and this is also known as the MAP framework. And this framework is a product of the National Association of City and County Health Officials. We used this framework back in 2019 when we completed our last health assessment and community health improvement plan. And then we used an updated framework to really build upon what we had already done and had already began working on, and using that to help us tell the community story and also to help us in prioritizing what those public health issues are, and then identifying possible resources to help address them. So over the last about 10 months or so, we've been working on our community health assessment and our community health improvement plan. One of the assessments that was completed was a community status assessment. And this assessment included a community health assessment, which is a paper survey that gets mailed out to residents. We also have an electronic survey that gets sent out, and that was part of that status assessment. There's also a very large comprehensive review of various data sources, and the work of this group produced a data book, multiple data books for our region and for our county. There's also a document that's prepared that's called the Top Data Points of Concern, and that's another outcome of that assessment. Another assessment that was completed over the last about 10 months or so is the Community Context Assessment. This assessment is an assessment that really looks at what the lived experiences are, the strengths and assets of our communities, the built environment, the historical context and structural racism within our communities. And then the other assessment that was completed was a partners assessment. And this is an assessment of our partners' resources and policies, our capacities, leadership, equities, and so forth. So these 3 different assessments that we've been working on as a group, following the completion of them, the Central Minnesota Alliance Regional Group, Leadership Group, really looked at these assessments to determine what were the top themes that came out of all these assessments. Looking at the qualitative information and the quantitative info that we pulled together, and then look to determine priority areas to be driven based upon what we saw come out of that process. And so that helped us to determine what our priority areas were. And the 2 main areas that we're going to focus on would continue to center around building families and mental well-being. There were 4 root cause areas that rose to the top throughout this process, those drivers of inequities. And those included having access to data and systems, and this includes access to internet and technology. That was something that came out of our assessment as well. I know that's something our board has been working on as well, and so we'll look to support that as we work through our CHIP plan too. We really learned through COVID, especially lack of internet access and technology really greatly impacted the ability for individuals to achieve many things, housing, food, information in general, in school, community events and activity awareness, scheduling a doctor's appointment even, all those things really require access to internet. Other things that we found throughout the assessment as far as root causes of inequity included the lived experience, structural racism, and historical context of our communities, and how that impacts health. And so learning from our communities and understanding helps us to understand how those programs, services, and systems were shaped and designed, and help us in learning from and with our community to improve the health and the work of our community and solutions and strategic planning. And then the last portion there is the guiding principles, so here. And really, this is those areas in which Central Minnesota Alliance is guided by, and really looking at focusing an emphasis on community collaboration, using an equity lens, focusing on strengths and resilience, and building awareness, educating, informing, and involving our health organizations. So we derived our goals and activities underneath each of those areas that were identified as root causes to inequities when it comes to health and equity. And there are 5 goals for our community health improvement plan. I do just want to note that this will be a living document, however, so these 5 bullet points are not the only thing that we're going to work on in Benton County Public Health or even as an alliance. So this can change depending on the community needs, and as the community needs change, we may shift as well. So the first and second goal falls underneath this first bucket of data access and systems. And this will be including bringing data and information to community by coordinating local data and general data and national recognition months. And we'll also be working on creating community access to data and awareness of what that data looks like. The components of that includes that piece I was talking about with the internet and broadband. So how internet and broadband impacts health, the building up of families and mental well-being. The next goal area is underneath this section of lived experience. And this area includes building upon campaigns surrounding what creates health, and then sharing how our social and economic factors, experiences, and so forth impact our health and the health of communities. And this is information that we can then use to impact policies and systems that impact health. The next goal area includes expanded efforts for us to work on toolkits for human resource departments across our Central Minnesota Alliance regional and geographic reach, and then also expand upon workforce recruitment efforts and are really specific to building diverse workforces. And then the last bullet point here, this is looking at engaging with entities and creating awareness with residents about the different systemic, structural, and institutional root causes of inequity. And I would like to note in your board packet, you have the entire plan. I believe it's about 120 pages or so. And so that plan outlines all of our different performance measures and action steps, as well as the community health needs assessment as well. So just to look here for next steps for the Central Minnesota Alliance. So between now and August, each of our partners within the Central Minnesota Alliance is bringing to their member boards. So of course I'm here today. Sherburne County brought theirs back on June 7th, and theirs was approved. Stearns brought theirs on June 28th, which was approved. And then Central Care Hospital brought theirs to St. Cloud Hospital, which was approved on June 15th. And then they'll be going to the remaining boards in the months to come up through August of 2022. And then at that point, once our document has received approval, we would move forward with getting that posted on our Benton County Public Health page and share that information public as well as our data information too. And then this would go into an implementation phase. So this would be a living document where we can work on our community, with our community on the plan and modify it as we're needing to, and then complete our local public health reporting as well. So with that, I would like to request the board consider approval of our community health improvement plan, which is required of us under the local public health statute of 145A. And thank you for your time.
All right, members, you've heard the report. Jacqueline, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve the Community Health Improvement Plan for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, developed in partnership of Regional Central Minnesota Alliance.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion in regards to the community health plan?
I have some questions. I wasn't able to read all these charts, if they could show those to us, or from 92 to 102.
Let me see here. I'm trying to find the screen here again so I can get back to you.
We could certainly forward that information on.
Yeah.
I believe she has it.
Well, she has it, she has it.
I
in the
have, but I
packet.
can't read it.
It's on your computer too.
Sure, right, yeah.
Use
So
your
if they
lap,
can enlarge it or,
use your laptop, cause it's in our laptop, and you can blow it up.
yeah, I don't have.
So are you talking about the diagrams that
Right.
were used in our prioritization process?
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, on the electronic document, I believe those are a lot easier to read. You can zoom in on those on the PDF.
Yep.
I think when it was put in the board packet, if it was scanned, it probably lost a little bit of that sharpness to it. But in the online document that we have, that document is clear and you can zoom in to read that one. And it was our prioritization process, which is how we were able to come to what the top themes were within our different areas of each of those buckets.
That answer your question?
It doesn't help me see what it says today to approve it.
Then you will have to
Okay,
use your
let me-
laptop.
I can open up the
Got no
document.
choice.
I'm not sure, can you still see my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and what page were you talking about?
92 to 102. The ones that have all the graphs on them.
Yep, so this is 92. And so this was a prioritization activity. So if I zoom in here, and I don't know if the internet, if you're gonna be able to see on your big monitor there, but
No.
what these are the different assessments that we completed. And so this is a prioritization process. So the community context group was able to take these different pieces of lived experience, the built environment, historical context, and structural racism, and we're able to do an activity that helped to determine where our priorities would be moving forward. So it was a process that was used to help us identify how to narrow down what those top themes were that we were seeing through all the different assessments, and then be able to determine our goals and activities from that.
If I may, Jacqueline, this Monty,
Mhm.
must this be approved today? Are we bumping against a deadline? It's gotta get approved today?
It's been approved by our partners, and so we would like to get it posted on our county pages as well, but it does not have to be approved today.
I was just thinking, you
Something
could, you
wanna
could, you could
further?
print hard copies for Commissioner Schlangen. It's gonna be a bit tedious going through this page by page.
Right. We've already made a
already seen
motion
it
and a
and
second. We have to let that die
Have to
first.
act on it.
Of
Yeah.
course, that's your prerogative, of course, yep,
Yep,
so.
we've got a motion and a second. She's brought up questions. I don't know if her questions are answered or not, if, there's
I
additional-
would like to see all this before I,
Okay, then I
That's
think
your
at this
priority.
point,
Let's call the
we've gotta
question.
call the question on the motion and second, and I guess if you need additional information, you're probably gonna have to vote no on it. Because I've got a motion and a second on the floor, so,
And we have to act on that motion.
yep. Any other discussion on the motion to approve it? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Okay, motion passes.
I think still it'd be nice if Jacqueline could give Commissioner Schlangen the hard copies of each of those diagrams in a readable size.
I think she's
Yes, I
up.
can do that.
Okay, thank you, Jacqueline. Anything else, Bob?
No.
Members, anything for Bob?
Nope.
All right, turn it back over to our board chair.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, thank you, Jacqueline. Next up, Roxanne, you walked in the room just in time.
She is on it like a bonnet.
You are on it.
All right. Okay, so before you have the memorandum of agreement from the Mississippi River St. Cloud Watershed Water Management Planning Process. This was tabled at the last meeting due to one sentence of uncertainty. That sentence has since been removed. The sentence was, each party will need to indicate in its resolution whether the plan will be supplemental to the party's water plan or will replace its water plan. That sentence has been completely removed. There is a desire to move forward with this as quickly as possible because we are coming up on the deadline to turn in or to apply for the grant funding before August 5th, 2022. However, one thing to be aware of is that an issue arose last week where Clearwater River Watershed District indicated they may not be entering into the MOA. Several of the attorneys from the attorney groups had a team meeting, and they felt that it was still advisable to move forward and sign this agreement so that we do not end up missing that application for the grant funds. If need be, there will be an opportunity to ratify the agreement.
Mr. Chair, I can say that that's exactly what came out of our policy committee a week and a half ago, so.
Okay.
With that, I'll make a motion that we enter into the MOU for the Mississippi St. Cloud Watershed Management Planning Process in order to get the grant money.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for this. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next motion would be to appoint a commissioner to serve on the policy board.
Mr. Chair, I appoint Commissioner Johnson to sit on the policy board.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Do they take an alternate? Do you know?
Maybe we should have rescind my motion
Yes.
and I will appoint Commissioner Johnson as the main person and Commissioner Kapinski as the alternate.
Commissioner Gopinski's in your district.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay.
So we've got a motion to appoint Commissioner Johnson and an alternate Commissioner Gopinski to this board. Correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Any further discussion on this? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank
There
you.
go, Roxanne. Thank you
Roxanne.
very much. George, you're up.
Good morning. What do I have, about
Morning.
30 seconds?
15.
So I'm here today, every year, the State of Minnesota Veterans Affairs provides a grant to counties to, it's called the Veterans Operational Enhancement Grant. Every county gets $7,500, and then based on population, we get a little bit more, we get $2,500 more. So I'm here to get your approval by way of resolution to accept the grant money from the State of Minnesota.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So-
Commissioner Pop?
Does this ever, it's been 10,000 as long as,
It's been for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And as our veteran population decreases, and it will decrease,
Oh, it will.
that grant will decrease.
okay.
Any other discussions or questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Chris, present the Public Works Highway Department Annual Report.
All comfortable?
Did you bring lunch?
I don't like the
As I was
position I'm in
reading
right
through
now.
this report,
Oh,
And you kind of find yourself in this position once in a while, don't you?
I feel more often than not, I'm up against the lunch hour, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many things to talk about. So, well, let's jump right into it. Hopefully, everybody received a copy of the annual report and spent all weekend just pouring through that and learning all about our activities from 2021. So that's what this is. Although we're in 2022, this is the report of all of our activities from 2021. And so I just have tabbed some things in my own report that I want to just point out. And I want to bring it up on the screen for those paying attention at home, if there is anybody paying attention at home. I want to go to page 1. It's page 1 at the bottom. It says Benton County Highway Department Summary of County Highway Information as of December 31st, 2021. So there's just a quick summary if you want to see what we spent on maintaining our 450 plus miles of county road in 2021. In CASA, it's broken out with our regular and our municipal. We have about 15 and a half miles of municipal CASA roads. And then broken out from our county roads. And remember, half of our county roads are gravel and half of them are paved. So just a quick math. You add the CASA, regular CASA municipal, that's $1,700,000 that we spent on maintaining our CASA roads last year, where we spent $1.8 million of maintaining our county roads last year. And then let's skip down to page 2. It's at the top, it's titled Benton County Brief of Activities, Comments, and Recommendations. And so this is the construction side. And I just want to point out these next 2 pages of, these are all construction projects we worked on last year. That doesn't mean we actually did physical construction in calendar year, but very rarely do we complete an entire project and construction from concept to final payment in 1 year. So it's just from a construction administration standpoint, there's a lot of contracts that we deal with every year, whether they're future projects or we're cleaning up all the paperwork from previous year's projects. So that's just a point I like to make there. Oh, as I'm going through this, if there was questions that you had on that page or anything that you saw while you look through it, don't hesitate to interrupt me and we could talk about that. So, all right, let's go to page 2.3. It says at the bottom. Just point this out. This is the equipment that we purchased or disposed of or sold in 2021. So we had a smaller equipment purchase budget in 2021, and those were the two things that we bought was the replacement of the mechanic service truck and a disc mower for about just under $134,000. You also see the equipment that we disposed of or sold, 4 different pieces, brought in just under $27,000 on those old pieces of equipment. One of which was that old crack filler machine that we had all kinds of trouble with that we sold for $13,000. So
New but old.
You're right, yeah. And then this is the page, since it's a capital purchase that denotes that we purchased the Eisenschenk gravel pit in 2021. All right, let's go to page 5. At the bottom. A lot of information in here, so I'm just trying to hit some things I think are most important, maybe even from a public standpoint. Page 5 here is the town road allotment. This is something that does touch our department because it comes to, although it doesn't hit Fund 13 anymore, it does come from the state, and we have a formula that's been developed that disseminates this to the several townships in our county. So total, Benton County received just under $193,000, and that's what was distributed to the several townships. Just for reference, the formula is dependent mostly on that township's population and their road mileage that they certify to us the fall of each year. Just one more thing to note, in 2021, this was less than what was received in 2020, mostly due to the pandemic and revenues being down. So I do know for 2022, we were up over what we did in 2021. So, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Do they get this in one payment or is it split in 2 payments through the year?
No, we send it all to them in one payment. There's actually a state law that says the highway departments have to send that out before March 1st of each year.
Okay.
We receive it from the state in February, and then we turn around and have to send it back out by March.
Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chair, just highlight, you did say that the townships do certify their roads, meaning that these are roads that they're actually taking care of.
That's right. They are
Certifying that they're doing the job.
We send them something every end of every summer of what we have recorded is what their miles are, the road description stuff, and we have them send that back to us signed by township supervisor. Because there is a requirement, it has to be maintained as a public road for at least 9 months out of the year. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that they're maybe plowing all of them in the winter, but they are maintaining it or certifying that they are saying it's a public road. Which does come up every once in a while. From time to time, we'll have a resident call us and say, so-and-so's not maintaining this, and we'll go check and say, yes, it is on their list, or sometimes it's not.
Sure.
They're not certifying that they're maintaining it. So.
And if they're not maintaining it, it's the friendly phone call saying you certified this road as being maintained.
Yeah, I guess I would admit that we're not always chasing townships down.
No,
but
I understand.
if we receive that call, we'll respond to that resident and say whether it is or is not.
Yep.
So.
And Chris, that also gives them the opportunity, like if they adopt or pick up a road because it's met the construction deals, that they can add roads to.
That's right. Yeah. So a lot of times,
Like
if
the
say a platted development gets started.
So it's
Each township is a little bit different on when they accept that road, but once they do, they certainly want to add that mileage to this,
So
which
it
would
is
affect their.
beneficial for us to turn roads back over to them.
A little bit.
I had to
That's
throw
another
that at
topic
you,
for another
Commissioner
day.
Pop.
So, okay, moving right along, we're gonna jump to, well, it's after page 7, but it's a lot of reports
Yeah.
in here, and I just wanna point this out. Oh, it won't let me rotate. Page? Okay. Well, if you turn your head sideways, this begins a recap of all of the equipment that our department owns, and it's broken into different categories. Like the first category here, we'll just talk about that on this page, is our dump trucks. So this is our plow trucks, but it also does include our sign truck and our semi-truck tractor that pulls the low boy that hauls our equipment to various jobs sites. So that just kind of shows the original cost. This is something interesting you'll see later in the budget, my budget presentation. We would like to replace one of these two at the top that were purchased in 2002. Our original cost 20 years ago was $138,000 for those. Today, we're pushing $250,000 to replace that same truck. So
But
that
you-
just shows over a course of 20 years where prices have gone with equipment.
But you did find the funds for that though, right?
No, that's why it'll be an interesting discussion at our budget presentation. So, and there was 2 of those that were purchased that year. So we know the likelihood of replacing both of those is probably not there, but it just goes to show that prices increase over time. So there's several pages of equipment. It shows our depreciation. We're trying to follow the county's fiscal policy on a depreciation schedule, which may be a topic for a future meeting too, if those need to be adjusted, because it does appear that we are keeping equipment a lot longer than what even our fiscal policy say is a depreciation schedule, so. All right, let's go to, okay, page 10 at the bottom. And at the top, it says, Statement of Revenue and Expenditures. All right. Okay, so this is what we've actually received as far as revenue, beginning on this page. And I do want to point out a couple things. So our cash receipts up there, property tax. So that would be the levy that our county, or my department, or our highway department receives from the taxpayers of Benton County. So in 2021, we had received $1,957,818.01. If you flip over that page to 10.1, you'll see our total revenue is over 14 million. So just some quick math. I think there's a story here to be told. That's why I want to tell it. The levy was 14% of our total revenue in 2021. So I know it feels like when you write that property tax check out that you're paying a lot of taxes. And what we do is very visible. Everybody gets to see and use what we do. But in reality, only 14% in 2021 at least of the county property tax levy went to maintaining the 450 plus miles of roads and bridges in Benton County. Okay, what next do I have? All right, so where did that levy go? Let's go look for page 12, which is another sideways page, but we will do our best to look at this. Okay. All right, so this page is a summary of our road maintenance costs by the different funds. So our accounting system kind of breaks it out by the category of roadway, but also by the category of work. So you see the columns are divided by CASA regular cost per mile, our CASA municipal cost per mile, and then the county roads cost per mile. So, and then we got routine maintenance row, repairs and replacements, betterments, special work, and special agreements. So here's some couple things that are interesting in here. On our CASA regular routine maintenance, we spent about $820,000 just doing routine maintenance on that. That could be crack filling, that could be pothole patching, that could be snow plowing, and de-icing activities. If you go over 2 columns to CASA Municipal, and let's look at the row special agreements, you'll see $70,525. And that is a direct reflection of our municipal maintenance agreements that we have with our several cities in Benton County. Not several, but a few of them, St. Cloud, Sartell, I guess we don't have one in St. Town, but Sartell, Foley, Sauk Rapids. So that's why that's a kind of a unique cost that you don't see in any of the other county road columns, because we do have a agreement that we pay a negotiated price each year for that. Maybe something else that's kind of interesting, if you go down to the subtotal row and look at the cost per mile columns for each of them. Our CASA regulars, we're spending about $7,400 per mile maintaining it. Municipal jumps up to $9,500 per mile. But I would argue that, yeah, municipal streets are sometimes more expensive to maintain. In our county, our municipal streets have more lane miles. There's also more features. You've got catch basins, you've got curb and gutter, you've got sidewalk and those pedestrian ramps at the intersections. There's more features to maintain on municipal miles. So that's why the cost per mile. And likewise, there's less miles of this, so the cost per mile goes up. Jump over to the far right column, county roads. We're spending about $8,000 per mile maintaining our county roads. And when you think about the funding sources, our levy is really paying for that $8,000 per mile of our 226 miles of county roads. So that's kind of how it breaks out there. If you continue, I don't want to go through all this because as fun as I have looking at these numbers, I appreciate my audience may not have as much fun looking at these numbers. But the next several pages really dives into more specific costs by tasks and things like that. Maybe just one that I do like to point out though, if you were curious, snow and ice removal is a common question because that's a thing that gets everybody gets to see whether we're plowing snow or we're not. So that's kind of in the bottom third of the page, but you can break that out. Look at that. On our CASA regular, we're spending $1,500 a mile on our CASA regulars doing snow and ice removal. Likewise, our county roads, we're only spending about $790 per mile. But when you think about it, half of our county roads are gravel. Per the snowstorm, they don't get plowed every snow event, and they don't get salt and sand put on the gravel road. So there's a big cost of de-icing material that's figured into that cost per mile. So that's just a kind of an interesting number that's fun to look at each year. All right. Well, let's go to page 17. As I'm scrolling past, I'm reminded there's a lot of detail here. If anybody was questioning where costs went, we can almost get down to a bug's rear end, let's say, almost per mile what we spent on roads. All that data is in there. There's a lot more information than what probably the average person would want, but it's there. Okay, page 17 is a summary of our construction costs. So in the front of the report, I showed all those construction contracts that were open. Here gets into the more detailed beginning reports of what we actually spent that money on. We'll just look at this first one. CASA 1, the project number is SAP 005 001-000. This was the Mayhew Lake Road Corridor. We assigned that a project number just so we could track our costs into it. Although that contract started with our consultant January 1st of 2022, we had some work in our office, certainly I did, helping prepare the request for proposals, answering questions from consultants, selecting that consultant this past fall. So all those kind of things got tracked, and that's just an example. You see, it wasn't contract payments, it wasn't right-of-way costs or things like that. It's basically the overhead costs and just doing some of the engineering on putting that proposal together. But the subsequent pages show all those projects, and you can see what we spent. Here's an example of Cassad 2 project that was actually constructed and finished mostly in 2021. You can see in the current year, we had no payment to the contractor, but we did have some engineering and some overhead costs for that project in 2021. That's why it's in the report. All right, and maybe finally, here we'll go to page 22. It's now at the county road project. All right, 22. So in all of our annual reports for the previous year, we show the upcoming year estimated budget. So in the subsequent pages, starting at 22 and 22.1 and so on and so forth, is what was adopted as the 2022 budget. So once again, there's a story in these numbers that could be told. If somebody wanted to, with this report, they could compare 2022's budget to what was actually spent in 2021 and go from there. We're going to be talking a lot about levy in upcoming months, so I have to point this out. So what was adopted for our 2022 budget, you see that a little over $2 million. So that was up over 2021. But looking at our anticipated revenue throughout this year, our total revenue is just under $11 million. That levy is contributing about 19% of our total revenue source. Once again, I just think that's significant to point out as we all hear complaints about where our tax dollars go. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. The only thing I'll add is at the very end of the report are some nice maps. It's always nice to see things visually. The first one that you'll come to is maintenance completed. So all those numbers that we saw previously in the report are shown graphically here, whether it's a dot denoting where we replaced the culvert. And this doesn't differentiate between whether it was an entrance culvert or was actually a culvert underneath our road, but it's noted. Where we did do striping or pavement markings on the roads, where we put new gravel on our gravel roads, and even on our paved roads where we did shouldering. So there it is. If somebody was to ask I didn't see any maintenance, where did they actually do maintenance in 2021? Rip out this map and say, well, here's where they did maintenance in 2021. The next map is construction completed. So you'll see probably remember some significant projects. One of them there is 55 in Rice. That was also pictured as the cover of this year's report. And then finally, we always put in there the upcoming map. And I have to remember, as we were completing this, I'm already working on the next version of this map. I have to remember what that map looked like as of December 31st, 2021. But there's just some maps at the end of that report. So, if that felt long, I apologize, but I think that was a brief recap of the Highway Department's 2021 annual report. I'd be happy to answer any questions or.
Very nice job.
Yeah. I would imagine this is hats off to Missy and Jessica.
That's right. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, Missy for sure puts a lot of work in this with help from Erica up front. So
I'm
they're
sorry,
really
Erica.
the workhorses behind this report and stuff. So really appreciate all the work that they do going into that. So, and it's an all year task. It's things as we pay invoices each week. We review timesheets each week. It's making sure that those costs are being tracked and coded to the right place. So when we get to the end of the year, we have accurate numbers that we can trust. So.
It was very interesting reading material. I made it through 25% of it.
If anybody's having trouble sleeping, maybe they could pull that out again, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks for that update.
Thank you,
Yes.
Chris.
Next, transportation sales tax collection, Chris.
All right, another thing, dealing with a lot of numbers, so I apologize for my excitement over this. Because once I dove into this, I found this this fascinating. So, if we get to a point, I'm going down a rabbit hole, don't hesitate to say, that's enough, Chris, we can move on. But a lot of good information. So, current balance. To date, we've collected almost $8 million of sales tax, $7,983 and some change. In 2020, we spent $975,000 of that. 2021, a little bit more, $2,107,000. So after 2021, it would have been about a $4.9 million balance. But once again, that's not the whole story. We got to look at what we anticipate spending in 2022. So there's the number as of 2021. We have almost $1.75 million that was approved for this current year to spend. Anticipating, since this is a to-date number, what we most likely will receive the rest of 2022, almost $1.5 million. That puts us what I'm estimating as a projected balance at the end of this current calendar year as about $4.6 million. I think that's a good place to be. The next agenda item is the 5-year plan. So let's just make an assumption that that goes through. If we have an end of 2022 balance of $4.6 million, the projects that was presented in the plan total about $3.1 million. I don't have that line in here.
No, you don't.
Oh, never mind, I read that wrong. Sorry. So what I'm estimating that we're probably going to see right around $3.1 million, a little bit more over the course of 2023. Our 2023 projects in the 5-year plan total $8.7 million. That is going to draw our balance down to zero, or at least near zero. And I say near zero because, once again, like we talked about in the annual report, very rarely, if ever, do we spend 100% of a construction project's dollars in one calendar year. There's probably going to be some overlap. So we're going to be close. I think accounting will help us out, and we won't be negative by any means in sales tax. But I don't anticipate a large balance of sales tax at the end of 2023. Well, let's look at collection, and this is where I thought the numbers got really interesting. This graph shows by month, color-coded by year, what we received so far. So each year it has been more for that month. So the current year is just kind of this orange color. You can see how it compares to 2021 as purple and this bluish turquoise in 2020. So in 2022, I don't know, more spending, inflation. I think one of you commissioners noted at our COW that inflation, as things cost more, that percentage of sales tax may result in more sales tax collected. But there's another story that's changing if you look the last 3 months. In previous years, we did see a dip last year at the same time, although 2020, there was continued to as an upward trend. This year, we do see a downward trend in our last 3 months. What does that mean? You can listen to economic analysis all day and draw all kinds of speculations. Are we starting to feel a recession? Are we starting? Is inflation starting to catch up to consumer spending and that's starting to slow down? I don't know. Maybe. I think at the end of the day, though, I don't know if we have enough data points to actually predict that or not. But something I thought worth pointing out, as you look at 2021, if you did have, although May and June were very stagnant, a dip in July, it bounced back in August, in September, with a little lull at the end of the year, last quarter of 2021. Another depiction of that, just to show that there are some months that are higher typically than other months, which is I don't know, kind of interesting. You can almost correlate it back to when people are spending the money, because I think our sales tax collection is almost 60 days. We received it almost 60 days after the consumer spent it at the cash register. Just kind of another interesting thing. I don't know what we could draw from that. This is a graph depicting the running total with the dashed line representing a trend line. And so although, we are trending upwards, where our balances or our total continues to grow, the trend line, I think, is recognizing the last couple of months isn't increasing as fast as it was, and our trend line is lower than our actual line. So maybe just something to be aware of, maybe be cautiously optimistic of where our revenues are going. I wanted to track the percent change over the previous month with the running total and what was collected. You can't really, due to the scale, it's hard to really draw any conclusions from the monthly collection, but you can see the running total as it grows. Percent change over the previous months. When we first started collecting that first year, starting in January of 2020, I mean, it did seem like the percent change was positive. We were seeing a percent increase over the previous months. Although this year, it's like, okay, now we're receiving almost 15% less than we did the previous month. And then the last couple months, we're at negative percentage change. So, I don't know, I just found this fascinating and interesting. You could take the numbers and look at it different ways. And I think at the end of the day yesterday, what I took from this is like, maybe we'll just be cautiously optimistic that sales tax will continue to come in at a good pace, but we can't guarantee it to climb as high as it did in the first year of collection. I did want to just recap or remind everybody where we are as far as projects. So we adopted the sales tax resolution in 2019. At that time, there was 36 projects that were identified and adopted. And based on those 2019 numbers, more likely 2018 numbers, estimated about $38 million worth of projects in that adopted resolution. We were only assuming that we would receive about $1.9 million a year. That would have taken Benton County over 18 years to collect. We'll jump to now. We still have those 36 projects in that resolution. Updated estimate, because we have completed some that may have come in under our estimate, but looking to future projects and maybe adjusting those estimates for inflation, that total would have been just under $33 million. And if we estimate $3.1 million of collection every year, we're about 10 and a half years total to collect enough to fund all those projects. And the reason why I wanted to point that out is because the resolution language has things in there that says that Benton County will continue to collect this sales tax for transportation until all the projects are funded. I do know of other counties, I think Stearns County recently has completed all their projects, and they're in discussions to create a new list. Some counties have midstream changed that resolution, and what I understand, it takes a public hearing. We had to have a public hearing the first time, but to change that, add projects to that list or take them off the list, it would require a public hearing to change that before adopting the resolution. So, not unthinkable or undoable, but it's just something to be aware of. If we want to modify that current resolution and current project list, we would need to have a public hearing. So, maybe a lot of numbers got thrown at you quickly, but there's an update on our sales tax list. I think maybe a couple things, like I said, to take away from this. Maybe we'll be cautiously optimistic for the future. And if the 5-year plan gets adopted as presented, we won't have much of a balance at the end of 2023. Any questions or further discussion on that?
Cool. Interesting charge.
A lot of good info. Thank you, Chris.
I guess we'd have never thought that we'd pull, at the current rate, 18
Right.
years down to 10.
Right.
So,
So true.
That is good. I think that's something that's good. Like I said, we've in the next 5-year plan. How do we get this to go away? Almost $8 million or over $8 million of projects next year that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the sales tax.
Right.
So
Chris, just to clarify, did you say that the lost resolution that's in place is until the projects are completed, so there's no need to update?
well, yeah. So there's actually two things. Let me clarify that. There is a sunset date, to December 31st, 2036. 7 maybe. Yeah, that would be about right, because we used 18 years from 2019, December 31st, 2037. Or when all the projects have received funding and are completed. So there's kind of a couple triggers there. What's that?
It'd be the earliest of the two, right?
Correct, that's a good way of putting it, Monty, the earliest of the two.
But then we can update it and it would have, would that have to go back into like a vote?
Public hearing. again.
public
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Stearns County, our neighbors to the west, I think that they only identified about 5 years worth of projects. And so they've completed those projects, and now that they're having those discussions, do they want to keep it going or not, I suppose, so. Although we adopted the half cent, they were only at a quarter, so they were a half of.
I
much
think
as
what they're
we're-
looking at is going to half.
Right.
Yeah, they are.
And well, you can imagine, with
Yeah.
Stearns County, that generates a lot more than what Benton County could ever generate.
Right.
Correct.
Better
Okay,
part to remember is that still about 35% of that comes from non-county residents.
yeah.
That is correct, yeah, that's a good, excellent point.
Okay, next,
All right.
5-year plan.
So the 5-year plan, we talked about it, a few times this year. We talked about it in depth on our road tour in June, and then at a committee of the whole just last week. So I like putting it in something that I think that would be visually pleasing to the public, because it really is a public document. These are public dollars that, and we would publish this on our website, and make it out there. So, maybe I was a little presumptive and say that it would be adopted by today, but, unless there's any changes. So just a picture of, this is County Road 22 as they were reclaiming it, last year. So, just a brief description of our system, what that looks like, what the purpose of the plan, primary purpose is to give us a planning document so we can focus our time and resources and prioritize where to spend those resources so we're ready to deliver these projects to the public. But towards the end here is the table that shows the projects and in the year that we anticipate doing most of the construction. And I like to clarify that they're doing most of the construction. Some of these, if we can get the plans completed this fall, we'd probably like to go ahead and advertise and receive bids this fall, even though the construction is going to occur in 2023. And then remembering that we may not have all the work completed, certainly all the contractual obligations on the contractor completed until the following year, then we'll issue final payment. So those are the assumptions made, though, to complete this document, is that all the funds will be spent in this year. But there you can see the sales tax projects broken out by the 3 different categories. And then, if you add that up, that was at $8.7 million worth of sales tax projects. And I like to think of it that way. There's $8.7 million of public infrastructure that wouldn't happen next year if it wasn't for sales tax. So, I know one thing, I should go back up. We did talk about this at the COW, to make a note about funding availability in later years. So I try to put that in this paragraph, that this is only guidance as to budgeting and programming of workload, and it is updated on an annual basis to account for changes in infrastructure conditions, average construction costs, and available funding. And I said, it is also, I should say, it is also important to point out that later years are subject to change due to various reasons, including but not limited to cost escalation, funding availability, and other unforeseen issues.
And Mr. Chair, that's a good point, Chris. I mean, that came out crystal clear that this is a plan.
Yeah.
That we're doing our best to get you guys information for the upcoming year, but that everything's subject to change after that.
You're right, because I think that's the thing, when you put something out to the public, there's gonna be a tendency to hold us, and it's more uncertain those later years, you promised me that you were gonna do my road in this year. Well, there could be things that were beyond our control, that we're just not gonna be able to accomplish that.
Yep.
So-
Good paragraph.
So this, although we didn't see this at the COW, these front documents, this table is the same that was presented at the committee of the whole last week. I will add, since that COW, I did have Scott Zwick in Planning and Zoning create a map that will be attached to this and shared too, so that's shown graphically here. So if somebody wants to see what we're going to construct and in what years, that will be out on the
I was just
website
gonna
tomorrow.
ask, so it's a little hard to see, but I assume that's County 50 in purple there.
Right here, yep.
Okay.
Mhm. It is kind of unique because it's a unique task. You see a lot of the similar colors around, and Scott has color coded that based on the type of action that it's doing. So yeah, it's right there with the year on top of the road, and the color coordinates to what the action is.
And you said that will be posted along with,
My intention was, yeah, to actually publish this on the Public Works Highway Department webpage.
yep, great. I guess my thought would be don't post it until that maps with it.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I got a question. So with the number of projects that you got going for next year and the number of techs that we have, are we gonna have to take some of the money savings from not having techs to go outside help?
Yeah, I think we're to that point where we're gonna have to seriously look at that, because if you even think about the time frame, somebody was to apply today, we don't have any applications right now. If somebody was to apply today, by the time we interview and go through that onboarding process, I mean, we're probably a couple months out before they're even sitting in that seat. And then to bring them up to speed, I don't think we can expect a lot of productivity out of them unless we get a stellar candidate that we steal from someplace else. So I to your point, Commissioner, we're looking at that. We're gonna have to use some of that to hire consultants, probably to help us with the inspection side.
Are they more available than hiring somebody though? I mean, all these companies are probably is in the same boat we are.
It is, so, that's why I'm glad that there's a commitment these first 2 years, because if we know that for sure we wanna deliver these in the next 2 years, it gives us a higher level of confidence to go out there and tell these consultants, yeah, we know we are gonna do these. Cause I think we are hearing that from some of them, they're struggling with the same thing, with personnel issues and staffing. And, although consultants are always willing to help with, at a price, but they want to know that we are going to deliver and not commit to Benton County, and then all of a sudden we don't deliver that project, and they had to turn somebody else down because they were anticipating helping us. So we do plan on combining these, like when you see reclaims, we'll probably combine those all as one contract and one bid opening, and then do the same for the mill and overlays. So hopefully that helps a little bit with at least contractor scheduling. It certainly helps with contract administration when we're dealing with one prime contractor and then they're tasked with managing their subs, versus if we had split these out. There's also some other benefits. It creates a larger project, creates more interest from bidders, even sometimes out of our area, get a little bit better unit price.
Being we don't have any techs and we got no applicants, would we be better off to go out to a firm and ask them and say, we'll commit to 3 years or something for doing our projects, and then maybe put this tech situation on hold until the market gets better, there's more available for us?
I'd be a little leery of that because that's so far out for funding stuff, I think. That changes on us.
But we might be able to tie them down at a decent rate for the next 3 years.
Hey, I mean, I think it's worth discussing, but
So right now, we know we're gonna do 2
2
years.
years of it.
Yeah,
3. So if anything, it'll only be 2 years.
2 years. That even may be better than just a
Yeah.
project by project deal.
I think maybe it's further discussion. We should really compare labor rates and what we're saving compared to what, those consultant labor rates are.
Cause you gotta factor all the overhead in and.
absolutely, workman's comp,
Yeah,
all that stuff.
gas, truck, all the other stuff that goes with having our own.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt the 5-year road CIP, heavy on the plan.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Pop. So we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. A lot of information today.
Oh, yes. Next, Commissioner meeting updates. Who's gonna start?
I can go. I had no meetings. Mine were all canceled for the month, pretty much.
I'll go next. I'll make it very brief. Roxanne touched base on our Water One plan, that took place there, so we'll be moving ahead with that. I just want to give a thank you again to Chris. He spent an hour or so with me at the Maywood Town meeting a week or so ago, discussing some bridge issues out there, and he's working with them, so I appreciate him coming 6 o'clock at night to their board meeting. Also briefly, myself and Commissioner Persky, Stearns, are on a subcommittee with Tri-County Solid Waste, and we met last week with Tim Bowling from Stearns County and discussed an upcoming Tri-County Solid Waste Board meeting, and it was decided at that meeting that we are going to request an executive board meeting between Tri-County Solid Waste Board and the Pope Douglas Board without any executive directors or any staff in the meeting to discuss our ongoing issues with the rate increases that have been proposed coming up. So that meeting will be happening, I believe, August 18th. So that's all I had. Thank you.
I have nothing.
Beth?
Criminal Justice and Career Solutions. Let's see. With probation, we're still having problems with, we need more beds than are available at Lino Lakes. And they're dealing with homeless camps. In the jail, there's, they're still struggling with the screening and processing and services, just intake and keep things moving. Anything else?
Basically, everything just dealt with human services and our problem we're having with mental health. And then especially with the teens, that's why we're got all that stuff for those beds. Keep going, Beth.
Then Career Solutions. Working with their grants and that's about it. With their Career One, they had 25 with their VIP day, and with their team program, they had 130 to 140 participate this year. And we had the deed visit yesterday. Anything else?
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, yep. Okay, that's all we have. I was with, on all those meetings too, so more to come. Comments by commissioners? Anything?
I gotta share my frustration a little bit that I thought we had some resolution on a driveway approach, and it frustrates me that
Nothing came forward.
that took place here. Makes me feel like I wasn't involved in it when I most certainly was, and it frustrates me that that is an ongoing issue and not resolved.
I thought there was good talk and resolution at the last cow on that, to be quite honest.
Well, that we needed to get somewhere on this driveway issue. Yeah.
Monty, if this is an ongoing issue, what can the board do?
About the driveway access policy?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
I know Chris kind of was talking about, a policy versus an ordinance. I think he shared with you some of the trade-offs.
What can we legally do about this if they're
Well-
not gonna create issue? I mean, if they're
Well, I
not
think
gonna
under
check
policy,
into everything?
Of course, you can direct your county engineer to, allow a driveway wherever you choose to. But the ordinance, again, you lose that flexibility. It's gotta be, this is the way it works, so.
Again, from my perspective, I thought it was clear and understood about
Right.
the direction we wanted to go, and I don't know that the board wants to be dealing with appeals of driveway approaches on every other meeting that we have, because we don't have distinction on our policy.
I thought
There's gray area.
Right, and I think my frustration is that I don't think the person that, the assistant engineer is administrating them, he's not sitting down and looking. It's either a blunt yes, blunt no. We need to have more conversation with the applicant, and we need to get out there once in a while and take a look at what the
And
driver's
sometimes to me, the simple answer is, instead of no, is what can we do? Here's
Right.
what we can do
Right.
to make this work. Not no.
I could have swore we used the word common sense.
Yeah, we did.
And it was figure out a way to make it work versus figuring out a way to deny it.
Right.
And I can tell you that I've had multiple phone conversations and text with Mr. Racka about this
Me
in
too.
the last 2 months,
Yeah.
and we still don't have a resolution. It cannot be that difficult.
He was pretty calm here.
Yeah.
It would have been probably a lot worse.
So that, with that being said, Monty, my question is, what can we as a board do with what's happening ongoing right now? Don't we?
If you want to remove discretion from your department, you would then probably want to have an ordinance, which then had the conditions that you think are favorable. In other words, if you think the spacing is too great right now under the policy, you would tighten it up under an ordinance.
Well-
So an ordinance is gonna remove that discretion from the department, and you probably have to have an appeal process in there somehow if someone is denied, what have you.
Well,
How
I
can we
guess,
keep moving forward to get these resolutions taken care of on a more timely manner?
The most expedition route is board direction to the department. I mean, that's
Okay.
what it comes down to. It
Yeah.
really is just saying, okay,
Okay.
this is what we want via motion, and really you need to do it via a motion.
Okay.
Second, it's approved, the direction is unambiguous then, that's really what has to happen.
Okay,
It's gotta be an action on your agenda, for better or worse, and a motion and second and a vote.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here a little bit. I think what's going on is there's turnover over there.
no, not in this,
No,
Not that
just
position, no.
hear me out though.
Yep.
There's turnover here, and I think there might be a little bit of a protection on people not fulfilling job duties and not getting things done in a timely manner, because if all of a sudden somebody else leaves, they're even backwards even further on other things and stuff like that. We need to, if somebody's got a job to do, we shouldn't have 2 months to figure out a driveway approach.
no.
Get it done. I mean, the longer it lingers, the more issues it brings up, both with the public, with the commissioners, and with their own department.
Mr. Sheriff, the loophole we do have is it does say that if we're doing the expansion, so there's more divided developments, that every property owner has a right to access their property. So,
Well, the loophole we do have is that they can appeal to the county board as well.
Right.
I don't wanna be in a position all the time, I don't think, that we want people in here appealing decisions every other meeting.
Well, I'm getting,
Those are decisions that can be made by them.
Well, especially if there's direction given that we're, as a board, we're trying to direct that there's a little more gray area, not so much black
Leniency.
and white. There's
Right.
leniency, there's how do we make this work? That doesn't mean every situation will work and that everybody gets their thing,
Case by case.
but it's a great example, and there's a lot of differences in case by case. And I think the policy right now is just, it's a 2009 policy. It needs to be updated, period.
Right.
Regardless of this. And I don't know, and maybe I'm a little naive, but to me, those are phone calls I shouldn't have to get all the time. I don't think.
they're more and more right now.
It
You
may
know.
take some direct involvement by the board in a few instances to sort of send that message to the department, hey, this is kind of where we land on this issue. So
So,
you may have to kind of actually get directly involved in maybe 2 or 3 of these.
No, okay.
and
so
then-
why don't we get it, why don't we do this one?
So at this point in time, Monty, this could be put on our next meeting's agenda.
Well, I'm kind of at the point where I'd like to call Mike back. In fact, he called me while we were sitting here.
Yeah.
This gentleman
And just
right
say,
here.
and just
Yep.
say, appeal it,
Yeah, appeal it, let's go.
appeal it, let's go.
And if we override that, you know, like, well, look at how long the Hanson one took. It took
I
forever.
know.
And that was litigation. We
And
did
that
it-
one was a little different.
That
We were
was
dealing with
different.
wetlands and
different.
all that
That was a
stuff.
little
But
different.
it's
He
a
had
great
to-
example of case by case.
He had to prove and show,
Right,
And he did.
and he did,
Yeah.
but it took us to push him to do that.
Right.
With that said, though, I do need to say, there was a long discussion with, I had a personal discussion with Chris, and that's why I felt that we had a resolution to this, and I understood that Mike was in on this. So I'm a little bit out here on not knowing what happened, because I talked to Mike personally about it, I talked to Chris personally about it, and I thought we had a resolution. So that surprises me
Then there's no
that there's
resolution.
no resolution, and I'm not saying that's Highway's issue. I'm not saying it's Mike's issue. There's an issue somewhere, because I talked to both of them, and
It's lack of communication.
we had a resolution, what happened to it? And he came today and said, it's not.
And he wasn't even here today to talk about that, really.
No.
No,
I know, I got two right now that are waiting for, you know, they're waiting for them to make a decision before they do the appeal process.
well, and again, I wanna be very clear, I'm not trying to hang this on Highway, there's a problem somewhere.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we just gotta find out where
we gotta
it's
find
at.
out where it is and resolve it.
Yep.
Because I know that Mark and Chris dealt with this, and I thought it was resolved,
Okay.
so it
How
could
long
very
have
well be
yours
on the
been
property
waiting?
owner, I don't know.
One hasn't applied because, well, he did apply, they told him he couldn't put it there. But there was
So,
no
Monty,
go at it or-
do us a favor, put it on our next agenda item, and/or if it got resolved.
Okay.
Because if it did not get resolved, put it on our agenda item.
So we can
As an
resolve it.
appeal.
That's
So we
right.
can resolve it.
So we can-
And I'm gonna call Mike back and tell him that if it's not resolved, you're gonna need to appeal it,
And we'll just take care of it next meeting.
one way or the other.
Cause I don't think, I thought it was a pretty cut.
Any-
He's willing to follow protocol. 300 and some feet away or whatever.
Well, there's, that happens more
Well,
often.
the problem in this particular situation, just the background, is he has a parcel that they've already approved a driveway on the south end. He would like one on the north end, which would be a second one.
Yep.
The biggest reason is because there's a wetland in between, he can't access the property from
Right.
both sides. There's an issue with, whether or not the neighbors wanna have a shared driveway on the property line, and that's kinda why I was doing on this discussion about road right-of-ways and who it really belongs to, the public. It's just, there's a bigger picture here,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Okay, we'll get that addressed. Any other comments by commissioners' concerns? Okay, committee of the whole?
Let's see, at least one here. We have, you're invited to the Benton Economic Partnership quarterly meeting. That is Thursday, July 28th at 7:30 in the morning. It's at the new clearing building there on the river in Sauk Rapids. We have registered everyone for that, so you're already set. Again, that's the 28th, a Thursday at 7:30 at the clearing. So, I'm thinking back to the emergency management discussion. Do we need a committee of the whole to talk about that some more?
What would you guys like to do about that?
I think we should.
do we have one we could tie it with something else right now or not?
Well, yeah,
I don't think it's gonna take long.
That's why I'm wondering if we can tie it with something else.
thinking of some other topics. Possibly, I know I'm talking recently with Roxanne and Brian. They were thinking about doing an update for the board on the whole CAMA tax issue. That might be something we could include. Recently, Troy brought up some changes in tobacco licensing regarding access to applicant criminal histories. We could add that to this agenda. That seemed like a good topic for a committee of the whole.
No more than two from my,
Yeah.
my.
Two topics?
Two topics, no more than two.
I think this topic could be taken care of in about 15, 20 minutes. in my-
Briefly.
I would think so too.
So I think, I must say, I do not know if Brian and Roxanne are prepared to talk about CAMA tax, but that's just one that I remember as a possible. Probably the more pressing one would be the tobacco licensing issue. So I would just say emergency management and tobacco licensing. And that's within, I guess you said, here in the next week or so. So what's next week look like?
I prefer Monday, but.
Mondays
Monday the
would be good for
25th?
me.
Okay, 9 o'clock on the 25th.
Yep.
So emergency management tobacco licensing, 9 a.m., July 25th. Okay. All
So
right.
following week is
So
the fair too.
am I correct in hearing it seemed pretty clear that the consensus of the board is it's probably not going to land in human services.
I think it's gonna get lost myself.
So
My personal
explore.
opinion, it's gonna get lost in human services too, because if they can find a free time for for that individual to do something, that individual will be doing it, and then pretty soon it gets lost.
Okay.
And then now we're falling behind
Okay.
again.
So obviously want to make sure Troy is
And then-
here for that discussion.
And then that position becomes a full-time position over there, and we're still looking for the
We're still
emergency
looking
manager.
for it.
Okay. I'm gonna hope that'll work for. Obviously Troy needs to be here for the tobacco licensing discussion.
And he wasn't, I didn't think he was too favorable of having it in the sheriff's department.
I think Troy is okay. He would definitely need a position though, of course. My perception is I think he would be fine so long as he got the staffing level he needed to do it. Yeah. And as we have observed before, and the vast majority of counties our size, it's in the sheriff's office.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
25th, I'm sorry, yeah, at 9 o'clock. And so that's it. That's what we have then.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the COW as presented.
No, second, go
ahead.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the cow? Now I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned at 12:27.
Is anybody available to go to
This is on. Yeah,